Have a car session.
These are cars.
Yeah,
Okay.
from the Q Bank.
Mm-hmm.
You see it?
Yep. All right.
Let's start reading.
Yep.
We must first make a distinction between literature and literary study. The two are distinct activities. One is creative and art. The other, if not precisely a science, is a species of knowledge or of learning.
So as you read, think out loud. Tell me what they're saying.
Mhm. So first says we have to make a distinction between literature and literary study. So, okay. Um, says the two are distinct activities. And so I didn't, yeah. I mean, then it says one is creative and art. The other, if not precisely a science, is a species of knowledge or of learning.
Okay. So which one is creative?
Um, it's like literature,
Okay. And which one is knowledge?
literary study.
Okay. And you see how what I highlighted was literature, literary study. In my head, I'm already filling in the blank of them being different. And then I highlighted creative and knowledge. So I'm thinking literature is creative, literary study is a type of knowledge.
Mhm.
Okay.
Um, there have been attempts, of course, to obliterate this distinction
All right, what's that saying?
that people like there have been tries to stop the divide like the distinction. I mean, the difference between literature and literary study, people have been trying to eliminate that.
Okay.
For instance, it has been argued that one cannot understand literature unless one writes it. One cannot and should not study um Pope without trying one's own hand at heroic couplets or an Elizabethan drama without writing a drama in blank verse.
What are we saying here?
Um, you can't like understand literature unless you actually make it yourself.
And who's
So
saying that?
the author,
The author? Is that what the author believes?
or I don't know, people.
So what does the prior sentence say?
There have been attempts, of course, to obliterate this distinction.
Okay. So these would be examples of obliterating that distinction, right?
Mhm.
So I'll highlight obliterate and then, maybe um, literature, one writes, and then we have some examples with Pope or Elizabethan drama. So what is this paragraph saying?
That there's literature versus literary study, and then example of distinction elimination. There have been like I don't know, just wait, I would write like there have been examples of the literary elimination, the distinction elimination. Sorry.
I wrote lit in parentheses creative versus lit study in parentheses knowledge. Some try to eliminate this distinction, and they believe that you must, in order to understand lit, you must write it. And we have our examples with Pope and Elizabeth and drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yet useful as the experience of literary creation is, the task of the students completely distinct.
All right.
So, um, new idea of like there's a task of a student. So
New idea. What is the new idea saying?
that like the studying it is different. The task of it.
Okay. Any special words?
Either yet or like completely
Which one?
yet.
Uh-huh. Contrast word, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, when you see a contrast word, like that starts a sentence, like acknowledge it. Say like, okay, contrast word. Uh,
Hmm.
okay, so now we're saying, a contrast to what was said immediately prior, that yeah, making literature is very different from studying literature, right?
Yeah.
Continue.
The student must translate the experience of literature into intellectual terms, assimilate it to a coherent scheme, which must be rational if it is to be knowledge.
All right.
I mean, like, Jesus Christ. Like, so yeah, like the experience of literature. Um,
So I have a question. So this sentence here, when you read it, how do you analyze it? Like, well, so what I would recommend is analyzing it up to that first comma and then to the second comma or
mhm.
the period. Um, and I would advise that for like any of these long sentences. So that way we get to still keep our goal of understanding things as we read, because that's pretty much the most important goal here, right? Being able to analyze or process information while you're reading. So try it that way. Try to tell me what they're saying up to the first comma here.
Okay. Yeah. The student must translate the experience of literature into intellectual terms.
Yeah.
Um, the like literature has to be actually like when you study it, you have to like write it down into some sort of like you have to express it somehow. That's my guess, but yeah, I don't know.
So uh so prior sentence was new idea saying, this is different, or student or studying it is different, and now we have same idea elab, and we're saying that the student of literature, when he or she reads that piece of literature, they experience it, but if they are to study it, which and studying literature is a type of knowledge, or like I think of it as an academic discipline. In order for the student of literature to translate that experience into intellectual terms, like academic stuff, um, well, that's one of the things he has to do. And then the second part says assimilate it in to a coherent scheme, which must be rational if it is to be knowledge. What is that part saying?
In order for it to be knowledge, it has to be like has to make sense.
Tell me more here.
Yes, it has to be like it has to make some sort of common sense. It's not common sense.
Okay, so you could experience literature by reading it. Um, but if you are to be studying it, you translate that experience into intellectual terms that must have some type of coherent scheme that has to be rational if it is to be knowledge, right?
Yeah, when I read this, I just like skipped over it, hoping I can understand the following sentences, which is not the right thing to do. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
So,
just saw that behemoth and I was like, nah.
uh-huh. So it's funny, I named one of my big hard drives Behemoth.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But
How many terabytes?
what's up?
How many terabytes?
12.
Wow. Okay. Anyways, yes. What were you saying?
So yeah, so you don't want to skip anything, remember? You everything matters, but also you don't have to like, understand this 100 and trillion% because a lot of times they'll elab eventually to make it more simple. So I would say that's the only case where, if your option is like if you're at a position where I don't know this sentence and I reread the sentence and it still doesn't make sense, then I would say to move forward. But that's the only case. Aside from that, you don't want to skip anything. So
Hmm.
we're just saying that essentially that um if it's like the I'm thinking of like literary study being a species of knowledge as being like an academic discipline. So if you weren't doing that and you're just reading a book, you're experiencing the literature. But if you are to be studying literature, then that experience of reading it must be translated into these, you know, uh, rational, factual stuff.
Okay, but so is he saying then, like he says, or she, whatever, the author says that like people have tried to separate the two, but they're actually, wait, no. People have been trying to like combine the two, like obliterate the distinction. But the author still believes that there's a distinction.
Oh, so
Right.
so in the first paragraph, author says there's a distinction. Author also says people have tried to eliminate the distinction, and then we have some examples of that with, people who say you can't study literature unless you create literature. So that's other people, but the author believes that no, there's a distinction, and he's just elaborating on what the literary study, the student of literature is to do to make that distinction. So I would say, yeah, like translate the experience of literature into, I would say, like a coherent form that's rational if it is to be knowledge.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Um, it may be true that the subject matter is irrational, or at least contains strongly unrational elements.
Okay. What is this saying?
Um, the subject matters can be rational, like okay, or it can contain strongly unrational elements. I
Okay.
don't know the difference between unrational or irrational, but yeah, like it can contain these things, but like the author was saying that you just have to make sure that the actual like when you translate it, that whatever you translate it to, quote unquote, translate is rational.
Yeah. So like, well, give me an example of like either like a book or a TV show or a movie that you like.
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad. So like within Breaking Bad, um, there could be irrational elements to it that I guess Breaking Bad isn't going to be the best example because there's a lot of
Yeah.
very realistic. Well, I do have an example. So in Breaking Bad, when they used when they just like dis dissolved a body in
Hmm.
acid, they actually used hydrofluoric acid, which is a very weak. acid. So that could be considered like an unrational or irrational um thing inside of it. Um, you know, but if you study it, you whatever it's like okay, like a better example would be like let's say give me one more example.
Um, Joker, the movie.
Okay. So yeah, so you could say that Joker is someone who is basically like crazy or something to like such an extent that, it's not very realistic for that person to be like that. Um so there could be those irrational elements in that story. Um but if you are to write, let's say, a movie review of the Joker, of Joker, you're gonna have your review has to be rational, even if the subject matter can contain unrational elements.
Mhm.
So, like, I think Superman would be a good example. Superman, that's impossible in real life. So that
Mhm.
could be something that a subject matter that's irrational. But if you are to write like a review or an essay on Superman, what you write and has to end up being, rational.
Okay. But the student of literature will not be therefore in any other position than the historian of painting or the musicologist, or for that matter, sociologist or the anatomist. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So tell me how these examples relate.
they're all like specialties of certain things. Like these professionals are like musicologists studies music extensively, you know.
Yeah. So I think so so like let's say for the historian of painting, you could have like a modernist painting that or like who Jackson Pollock is?
I've heard of the name.
His art is like a bunch of
Hmm.
kind of random,
Yep.
you know, uh that's not like a rational subject matter, right? If it was like a picture of a tree, that's a rational subject matter, but if it's something, or let's say like Picasso, with the face all messed up, not a rational subject matter, right?
Hmm.
But if you are a historian of painting, and you write like a paper on Picasso or Jackson Pollock, your paper must be rational,
Hmm.
right? So what we can say for this paragraph would be, all right, put an arrow to the above to say, it's distinct. Um, Translate experience of lit into coherent, rational knowledge. I Subject despite irrational slash unrational subject matter, i.e., historian painting, etc. Yeah.
Problem is one of how intellectually to deal with art and with literary art specifically. So new idea about base dealing specifically with art. So first they're talking about literature. Now they're talking about literary creation, and now they're talking about specifically literary art.
Okay.
Can it be done? Question mark. Okay, rhetorical question. And how can it be done? One answer has been it can be done with the methods developed by the natural sciences, which need only be transferred to the study of literature.
Okay. What are you saying here?
You can, I guess, translate experience of like art through sciences.
Tell me more.
Um, you can use science to like, study literature.
Okay. So so in paragraph two, he said that the student of literature must translate his experience of literature into some rational, intellectual type of knowledge, right? And this paragraph, third one, is saying or is talking about not what you do, but how you do it, right?
Hmm.
And one answer, one way of approaching it could be using the methods developed by the sciences that you can just transfer to the study of literature, right? Okay.
Several kinds of such transfer can be distinguished. One is the attempt to emulate the general scientific ideals of objectivity,
Okay.
impersonality,
Mhm.
and certainty. Wait, so yeah, you're emulating, as in like you're replicating the general scientific ideas, like those three. An attempt which on the whole supports the collecting of neutral facts. So like neutral facts, like unbiased.
Uh-huh. All right, good.
Another is the effort to imitate the methods of the natural science through the study of causal antecedents and origins,
Try that word again.
and antecedent, I don't know.
Before that.
Oh, causal, okay. Something that like happened before, I guess. Um, and origins.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Scientific causality is used to explain literary phenomena by the assignment of determining causes to economic, social, and political conditions. So yeah, scientific causality explains literary phenomena.
Mm-hmm. Yep, by assigning um causes to economic, social, political conditions. Yep.
Again, there's the introduction of the quantitative methods, but probably used in some sciences. Statistics, charts, and graphs. And finally, there's the attempt to use biological concepts in tracing of the evolution of literature.
Mm-hmm.
Today, there would be almost
Oh,
general,
tell me about this paragraph.
right. So you could say basically science, like not the sciences can be used to study literature. Like scientific causality explains literature.
Tell me, like, more specifically.
Um, like scientific methods. I don't know.
So, okay, we can use the methods that were developed by the sciences and transfer them to the study of literature. And there are several kinds of transfer. One example is to emulate the scientific ideals of like objectivity, which means that you're going to be collecting neutral facts. That's one. What's another?
Um, like causal
Okay.
things, like origins.
Okay. What else? Can you give me like any like elaboration on that?
Um, like what causes different conditions, right? The ones like you highlighted.
Oh, yeah. But like, do you see like why I would highlight that?
No.
Yeah. So, okay. So we talked about the emulating the scientific ideals of objectivity, etc. And so that's one of the methods. And in order to carry out that method, it involves collecting neutral facts, right? So the other method is causal antecedents. And in collecting evidence for that, you're going to be assigning causes to economic, social, and political conditions, right? Okay, what else do we have here?
Um, Quantitative methods,
Yep, and any examples?
stats, charts, graphs,
All right, anything else?
biology,
And
evolution.
yep. So so yeah, you want to be more specific. If you don't want to just say, okay, they're using methods from the sciences. You want to know, okay, what methods, what examples, right? Everything, is important.
But I'm
So,
not gonna have time to write all this on the exam though.
I mean, that's the idea is so in order for us to even write this, we have to think about it first, right?
Mhm.
So if you if you practice writing it out like this, you also practice thinking about it. So ideally, you'll get to the point where on test day, enough practice of doing it this way means that you've internalized the ability to think about it, to process this information as you read it, such that you may not need to write anything down. Like when I would do this, I would like start jotting some stuff down, but maybe like halfway into it, I would already have it organized in my head. So I wouldn't have to write the entire thing out. But when you're practicing it and when you're doing, your blind reviews, you want to do it exactly the way that we're doing it here. You want to write this map out and you want to um read slowly and understand things as you read it.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Uh,
like yeah.
Today there would be almost general recognition that this transfer has not fulfilled the expectations with which it was made originally.
All right. What are you saying here?
That science hasn't really been used to study literature. Like it hasn't fulfilled expectations.
Okay.
There is no doubt a large field in which methodologies of science, literary study, contact, or even overlap.
So, and what's that saying?
That science and literary study overlap. Like there, the author says no doubt. So like for sure there is.
Yeah.
Such fundamental methods as induction, deduction, analysis, synthesis, and comparison are common to all types of systematic knowledge. So he provides an example where they overlap.
Uh, Tell me more.
He provides examples. Um, yeah, I would say those are the examples.
Examples of
Like overlap of science and literary study.
overlapping of what?
Like how science is used in literary study.
So
Transfer.
methods, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, the overlap is of the methods.
Mhm.
Okay.
But pat patently?
Any special
Patently?
word?
What?
Special word?
Yeah, but.
Okay.
Um, the other solution commends itself.
Mhm.
Literary scholarship has its own valid methods. Okay.
What's that saying?
That there are some methods that like science aren't part of,
Go on.
which are not always those of the natural sciences, yeah, but are nevertheless intellectual methods.
So again, tell me what this is saying.
That literary scholarship, it has its own methods, and yeah, they're separate from those that are intermixing with the sciences, but they're still intellectual methods.
Good.
I don't know what that exactly means, intellectual methods. They said, yeah, experience literature into intellectual terms.
Hmm.
Um,
Saying you don't know what they mean by intellectual methods.
yeah,
Okay. So we started talking about that where?
in the second paragraph,
Okay. So and what did we say about it?
that we have to translate literature into coherent rational knowledge.
Yep. So intellectual methods could just be like I would maybe think of it as like an academic method, um, in which you analyze something intellectually, like you know, uh, in a rational way that you would approach knowledge. Um, so I think that's what they mean by intellectual methods. Uh,
Okay.
so what can we say for this paragraph?
So, transfer has not fulfilled expectations which was made originally. So, like, using science to study literature has not fulfilled expectations. I don't really know how to reword that or make it more concise.
Say,
Um,
say what you said one more time.
what?
Say what you said one more time.
Using science to study literature has not fulfilled expectations. The methods. Um, is what they're saying like using the methods? Um, I'm just yeah, as you can see, I'm confused. So,
Okay. So let's consider what is being said before the word but.
um, they're saying that the methods that you use to study literature through science, there's a decent amount of them.
So there's so you can see also from like what I highlight, science literary study overlap, right?
Okay.
Meaning the methods that one would use to study science would be there would be overlap between those methods and the methods for literary study.
Yeah.
And then some examples are like induction, deduction, and these are things that are common to all types of systematic knowledge. So, so literary study, there are methods that science and literary study have that overlap, and these types of methods could be common to all types of knowledge. And then we have our contrast word, and you generally want to pay extra attention to what's being said after our contrast word.
Mhm.
So after the contrast word, what are we saying?
That there have been some methods that there's no overlap.
Like, tell me, tell me
But
more.
like literature scholarship, literary study has its own methods,
Yep.
um, and they don't overlap with the sciences.
Yeah. Good. So to really, really, break this down, I would say, hey, there's overlap between the methods of science and literary study, and then we have some examples of that. But literary study has its own valid methods too.
Mhm.
So I wrote arrowed above, overlap, parentheses, induction, etc., exists in all types of knowledge, but lit study has its own valid methods.
Mhm.
So, so as you read this, and if you're reading it properly, which means, you're processing information as you read each word, you can kind of maybe see a type of flow here. The
Right.
distinction between literature and literary study. Literary study, how do we approach it? We can use methods from science, but we can also use methods that literary study has, like its own methods,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only a very narrow conception of truth can exclude the achievements of the humanities from the realm of knowledge.
All right, what's that saying?
Um, no clue, man. A narrow conception of truth.
Okay.
Um, what the types of like how maybe the literary scholarship methods might not work.
So, so for this sentence, I think the first part, only a very, very narrow conception of truth, could be a little too abstract. So you could analyze a sentence going backwards too. So for this, if we're saying after that, um, exclude the achievements of the humanities from the realm of knowledge, that's saying, okay, if you don't think that that the humanities um can have their can be can have their own branch of knowledge, you must have a very narrow um idea of what truth is.
If the humanities don't have their own realm of knowledge, then you don't really know what truth is.
Oh no, so we're saying the achievements of the humanities, if
Mhm.
you exclude them, you have a narrow conception of truth.
Mhm.
So so you see how I'm thinking about it kind of backwards, like achievements of the humanities, if you exclude the achievements of humanities, you likely have a narrow like definition of what truth is.
Mhm.
It's almost like saying if you think that humanities don't have any, important like intellectual, knowledge behind it, that could be like if you're like super like a logical mathematic guy and you're like, okay, math is the only thing that can tell you what truth is, and humanities, aka literature, uh is not legit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Long before modern science development, philosophy, history, jurisprudence, theology, and even philology are worked out valid methods of knowledge.
All right, what are we saying here?
Um,
So what do you think they need? Like, what do you think them listing philosophy, history, jurisprudence, etc.? What do you think that means? Or yeah. Oh, I think you froze.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened. I'm on my laptop now, but sorry about that. Either the power went out in the building or just the Wi-Fi, but it's not working right now. So,
Gotcha.
anyways,
Yep.
um, okay. It sucks our highlights freaking got lost, but whatever. Okay. All right. You're able to see the passage, right?
Yeah, it's a Picasso one though.
Yeah, one sec. All right, we're back.
All right, so why don't you use the annotate text tool to write a map for paragraph one and paragraph two? And then yeah, see if you could fit the passage on that screen.
Mm, trying to zoom out.
You could
Like,
you could use that. Um,
hmm?
go up again. Over. Oops. Over here. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, use that annotate tool and write yeah like P1 and then
I mean, I don't know how to change the font, but
okay.
so, all right.
So write down what we put what to put for paragraph one.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna write another new one. P1. So, wait, do you see P1 that I've typed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Um, so I'm writing, yeah, P2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what else to write. I mean, something about irrational probably, but
Yeah. Um, maybe I would just put um like student translate EXP lit EXP meaning like above where you wrote it, yeah. Meaning the experience. And then after EXP lit in parentheses, I'll put like irrational slash unrational, something like that. Yep. And then I would put like IE or like, example like um musicologist, etc. Yep. If you go to the color bar, like on the annotate, it lets you change, yeah.
Okay, we cut out on paragraph 5, but can you please comment on my map and what is bad about it? Criticize it. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I wouldn't have the luxury of time on this exam of like making it all nice and pretty, having all that, but
Yep, yep. So, let's see. Paragraph one, distinction between lit and lit study attempts to eliminate the distinction. Example, Pope Elizabeth. Yep, that's perfect. I would probably make it just write yeah, no, I think that's good. And then paragraph two, translate experience of literature in parentheses irrational to intellectual terms rational. Example, musicologist, perfect. P3, science to lit. Example of that. I think the science to lit part, like it's fine if you have in your head what that means, but just from this, I'm not sure if like what that means on its own. So I would just maybe write like scientific methods, like before the arrow, I would put like where you wrote science, like I'll just put like yeah, yeah. Um, and then yeah, all of those things. And then paragraph four, where you wrote the arrow thing transfer not fulfilled, I would just put like a caret, like an up arrow, and then just saying, you know, like overlap, but uh yeah, and then yeah, lit study has its own methods. Um yep, that's pretty perfect. So I wrote kind of like a short version of it here, like P1
nice.
P1 lit versus lit study. Some think you must write lit to study lit, example Pope, and then P2, the pretty much exactly what you wrote. P3, I mean, initially I wrote more, this time I just wrote less. Um, um, and then P4, yeah, has its own methods. Good. So, all right. So, yeah, last paragraph we said um, that yeah, there's yeah, literary methods. So or like I guess humanities, like yeah, they existed before sciences. Um, and that, it's bad to think that the humanities, didn't, have achievements in knowledge. So, um, yeah, I think you're on the sentence that says their achievements may have become obscured.
Yeah, their achievements may have become obscured by the theoretical and practical triumphs of the modern physical sciences.
Mhm. So what's that saying?
All the humanities, like the literary methods, they came before science, but when science methods actually, became a thing, they kind of obscured, in other words, like phased out the literary methods.
Yeah, I would say like they kind of stole the show.
Hmm.
Good.
But they are nevertheless real and permanent and can, sometimes with modifications, easily be resuscitated and renovated. Okay, so, um, they were phased out by the sciences. Scientists told the show, but if we want, we can still recover the literary methods, like if we need them.
Good. Okay.
Should be simply recognized that there is this difference between the methods and aims of natural sciences and the humanities.
Hmm.
So yeah, they're saying
Yep.
there's a difference between methods and aims, and that. But I don't understand. The author said this, but overall, the main idea, now that we would like are going to think about it, like overall, the main idea is that we can study literature using scientific methods. But but this very last paragraph, the author did also say that there's differences between scientific and humanities methods.
Yeah,
but there's overlap also.
yeah. So to finish up P5, you wrote lit methods used before sciences. Maybe I would just put
That's before we fully finish the paragraph.
shadowed lit, but lit still valid and different from science, something like that, maybe.
Hmm.
So, okay. So we said that. So first, yeah, lit, writing lit versus studying lit, totally different. And studying lit means, it's like an academic I'm think of it as an academic discipline. And we could use scientific methods to approach literary study. Paragraph 4, that doesn't really work. It hasn't really worked using the scientific methods. I mean, sure, there's some overlap, but that could just be because of things that are like induction and deduction that are in every type of knowledge. Uh, but lit itself has its own valid methods. And then paragraph 5 says, again, lit has its own valid methods, and it might be overshadowed right now by the sciences. Lit still has its own valid methods that are different from sciences. So the main idea, what do you think the main idea would be then?
That science can be used to study literature, but um, it has not fulfilled like its its potential. Science greater than literature. Science methods greater than literature methods. Also,
Science methods greater than literature methods?
like okay, that's not many because I was only said in one paragraph. That like
Do we want to distinguish, like, so when I say like focusing on who's making the argument, for instance, the argument of methods used by the natural sciences, it says one answer has been,
mhm,
right? So that's not necessarily the author's opinion, right?
mhm.
Right? The author's bringing asking a question saying, "Okay, how do we intellectually deal with art?" And then he says, "Well, one answer, aka some people think you could do this by using the methods developed by the sciences, right?"
Got it.
And then the next paragraph says, "Today, people see that this transfer has not worked," right?
Hmm.
That's what this means.
Hmm.
So, a lot of times you'll see a pattern. For instance, paragraph 1 says some people tried to get rid of the distinction. Paragraph 2 then refutes paragraph 1 by saying that it's distinct, right?
Hmm.
Then
Yeah.
paragraph 3 asks, how can we intellectually deal with art? Well, some people say you can use the methods developed by the sciences. Paragraph after that, paragraph 4, we then refute that, saying that this has not worked, right? And when someone says, like, okay, there is no doubt a large field in which, there's overlap, it's kind of like they're making a concession before they say something like, but. So it's like the
Yeah.
okay, this transfer of science methods applied to literature hasn't really worked. And I admit that there is some overlap. However, ultimately, and that's your contrast words, right? Here and here. Paragraph 1, obliterate the distinction. Paragraph 2, contrast word means we're refuting that. Paragraph
Mhm.
paragraph 3, what methods you could use scientific methods. Paragraph 4, sure. Well, it hasn't worked, and there could be overlap, but contrast word, lit study has its own valid methods, right?
Mhm.
And then paragraph or 5, last paragraph, reiterates saying that there is simply, yeah, methods, or rather, yeah, like yeah, humanities have valid methods, right? So our author's opinion is more so in these paragraphs, whereas,
Got it.
yeah. So if you came out of this thinking that the main idea is that we should use the scientific methods, right? That, I mean, I could totally see why someone would think that. Um, but we want to distinguish the author's opinion from other people's opinion, right? So when you did this, was that your main idea, that to study literature we should use the scientific methods?
Yeah, I think so.
And did you like how did you read the passage? Did you like skim it? Did you like kind of read?
I mean, this is hard. Like, I sentences I didn't really understand. I didn't really try to really get them. Um, it was just difficult for me to understand also where like the author was, um, giving his like opinion versus
Uh-huh.
other people's opinions. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when you read it the first time, or I don't know if you did you do a blind review for this or no?
Yeah, no, I mean I did this once, then I watched the whole Jack Weston video on this and
Yeah.
yeah.
So, uh, but no blind review, right?
I did. Like I do this in the morning. What I do usually is I do the passage in the morning, then I wait until night. I do it again at night, untimed, and then I watch Jack Weston video on them explaining it.
Okay. So when you were reading it, whether it's the first time or for your blind review,
Hmm.
want to know, are you skimming it? Are you kind of like skipping around? Or are you going really slow and steady?
I'm definitely like I'm not skimming. No, I'm
Mhm.
not like skipping through it, but
Uh-huh.
it's very difficult for me to understand these types of like abstract passages. I read through it and I try to conceptualize or visualize it,
Uh-huh.
but sometimes yeah, it's hard for me to get the main idea still.
Yep. Okay. And it's okay if you don't have it, but did you have a map for this, like before the one we wrote today?
Good question. Actually, good question. Probably have it.
Hmm.
Hold on. Okay. Okay, I have both maps. This is actually it's good you brought this up because I would yeah, it's definitely would be nice to go over this. I mean, it was like a week ago, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just sending the document myself.
It's funny because we just got rid of that other map too.
Oh my God.
It's okay. We don't need it.
I didn't realize. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That's my bad.
Mm.
I feel like an idiot. No, because I was gonna reshare a different,
Yeah.
like I'm sharing Notability.
Yep. Yep.
My bad. Um, do you see a PDF?
Yeah. Okay.
There it is.
Lit,
There it is.
lit study creative species of learning. Students should separate from experience, collecting neutral facts, lit scholarship, intellectual methods, different methods, and natural sciences, and then lit study. Students translation translates into intellectual terms using that site in lit scholarship, intellectual methods, humanities important in knowledge, intellectual methods important in literary scholarship. Okay, so the first one makes the first paragraph seems fine. It's, the distinction between literature and literary study. Paragraph two, your in your first map on the left, student should separate from experience. I think you were kind of conflating like the separate, like we have to separate literature from literary study. Um, so I would say that this one, oops, isn't the best, but this one is better there. For the first paragraph, though, both of these are fine. And then P3, um, yeah, collecting neutral facts, definitely not that good, but P3 here, use natural science in lit, I think is good. I just would have specified methods.
Right.
Um, and paragraph, oh, four, okay. Um, lit scholarship, intellectual methods, P4 here, lit scholarship. Oh, you wrote the same thing for both of them. So I think that would just be, I think that is probably like one of the really important paragraphs. And I think that that's where it's not very good for both of these because we want to say that so we want to say like lit, methods, you know, are not the same as the science methods, but still valid. I think that's where you may have gone wrong with paragraph four. Then paragraph five, let's see, different methods and natural science. Did you mean different methods like from natural science?
I don't remember. I mean, I probably didn't mean that. I probably didn't.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it was bad.
And then
I basically, from what you can tell, I did not understand like the passage whatsoever, really. And I didn't even understand that, like, yeah, because look at the main idea. I didn't even understand the passage.
so P5 on the left, Okay. P5 on the right, humanities important in knowledge. I would just say, kind of like P4, like, has its own, forms of knowledge. And then don't see a main idea for the one on the left. For the one on the right, intellectual methods important in literary scholarship. You want to be so you want to be more because that's still pretty vague. So you want to be more specific. And I think that is where I think paragraph 4 is where things went south, uh,
Hmm.
which is unfortunate because that seems like it's like the most important paragraph. I don't like to say like if one's a paragraph's more than important than another one, but that is the one where we said that lit study has its own methods, not just that of the sciences. So yeah, that's what we want. So um so yeah, that's yeah, that's what I would change here. So yeah, you could take a screenshot of this to see.
Hmm. So I guess I'm gonna stop sharing again. Oh wait, what'd you write?
Oh, humanities own like methods of knowledge, and then for the main idea, basically lit study methods valid, and they don't have to equal the same thing as the scientific methods. If you want to, I can take a screenshot for you.
I just took one.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, if you can also, yeah, just to make sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So in the um in the passage, you can see essentially, just to say this again, that like there have been attempts to obliterate this distinction, meaning people who are not the author tried to eliminate the distinction. Then we have our contrast word saying that no, we can't eliminate the distinction. And then, like, meaning from the author. And then paragraph 3, we're saying, okay, how to do this? One answer has been using the methods of the natural sciences. And that says one answer. It doesn't say the author believes it, right?
Hmm.
And then paragraph 4 says that there's, oh yeah, contrast word, and that lit scholarship or lit study has its own valid methods that don't have to be the ones of natural sciences, but are still legit. And that's from the author. And then last paragraph, also from the author, saying that the humanities, uh, legit have like legit methods. So yeah, that's the overall kind of skeleton of what this is. So yeah, so I would say that paragraph 4, but yeah, like you're gonna have other people's arguments brought up in passages just for the author to refute them. And that's what we have here. And also, like, the reason I always tell you to really pay attention to those contrast words is because that usually means that something important is going to happen. Um, so it's like, if someone like starts to like give you a lot of compliments and it's like, okay, you're going to say the word but.
Yeah.
that kind of thing. The more important things after the word but. But okay, all right. So our main idea should be what?
Um, it's just difficult because I feel like the author makes a lot of points, but that we have to separate literature methods from science methods.
Uh-huh. Yep. Okay. So now we can do these questions, and what you can do for the questions is for like in addition to like telling me why, why if it's wrong and why it's wrong and stuff. Well, yeah, we could start with that, and then I'll ask you something else after. But yeah, try, A first.
What is the amenity of the passage? Those who create literature understand it more completely than those who only study it. Um, okay, keep a methodologies of science and study of literature.
Well, when you keep A, you still you
Yeah, sorry. I think that's so. This is just like kind of out of scope. I mean, it's not out of scope, but like, yeah, like we don't really talk about like that's kind of talking about what was said in paragraph A. Regardless, it's not the main idea.
so um
Paragraph one
yeah. So
or
in paragraph one, we said that some people who are obliterating the distinction would believe that, if you can only study it, like in order to study it, you must create it, right?
yeah. I just like I just
One cannot,
basically A is out of scope.
it's not out of scope because they do mention it in the paragraph, in the passage, and they mention it in paragraph one, right?
So
So
it's a localization thing. It's just not the main idea. It's just one paragraph's idea.
we could say localization, sure, but we can also say, and I think this is stronger, that the author says that there's attempts, right? And it's been argued, right? But the author's not saying that this is what he's arguing. He's just saying this is what other people have said,
Hmm.
right? So, so yeah, you could say localization because it's only in one paragraph and a main idea question. This is literally like, main idea question should be in more than one paragraph. So yeah, localization's one way of eliminating it. Another way is that this is not what the author believes. What the author believes is here with after the contrast word. So that would be contradiction, which is a stronger uh reason to eliminate.
Hmm.
All right, what about B?
Methodologies of science and study of literature have many features in common. So that's what I put when I did this passage. Because I got the wrong main idea, but that's wrong because the whole point is saying that science and literature methods are different.
Okay. So we could say, hey, they said that in paragraph 3. They said that in paragraph 4. So we may not be able to use localization here, right? Um, and technically, if this is in more than one paragraph, it could be considered a main idea. But the main idea, in addition to that being in more than one paragraph, has to reflect what the author believes. So, yes, they do have many features in common, but that's not what the author's point is, right?
Hmm.
Okay. What about D.
The achievements of the humanistic disciplines have been obscured by the achievements of the physical sciences. We don't really talk about the achievements. Or I mean, hold on. Sorry. See, I'm a little too fast. I have to hold my horses.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
D is discussed in the last paragraph.
yeah.
That's when we said science is obscured literature. Or yeah, science is obscured humanistic principles, which are literature methods. So that's a localization thing where like it only discusses one paragraph, but it's only discussed in one paragraph. We're asking for, we're asking the main idea.
Yeah, so we could say localization. Um, and we could also say that this thing is mentioned by saying, okay, this might be the case, right? That they're obscured, but they're still real. So we can, yeah, get rid of that one. Now, what I wanted to ask you in addition to all of this is what, because the other answer choices, like they can't be like outrageously wrong. They have to have, some valid reasoning for someone to have chosen it. So, for instance, for choice A, what do you think? I kind of call that like like trap answers. So, like, what do you think a student who would choose A, what do you think, they did? Uh, what do you think they did wrong in their analysis of the passage?
Like they understood the first paragraph, but like not the rest of the passage really.
And what about D?
Like I guess the opposite, or it was like recency bias. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, for people who like have, because I've even read like some people have crazy like methods of like just read the first paragraph, just
Oh,
things like that, right? So that's gonna get you, yeah, the trap answer choices. Yeah. So that's why, yeah, cars is entirely holistic.
yeah, it sucks.
Mhm.
On the ACT,
Mhm.
I like did pretty well, and I would look at the questions first. Like
Mhm.
I would look at the questions first, and then go back to the passage because the ACT is more of a time crunch than the SAT. I remember.
Mhm.
Um, and I ended up doing a lot better in the reading on ACT than SAT because like the passages were a little easier in the SAT, but it was time crunch. But still, like I would just look at the questions. I
Yeah.
know what they're asking me, and then I just skim passage, and it worked. But here, you cannot do this.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because those tests have retrieval questions.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, good.
Okay, so let's see. Yeah, this one I understand pretty well why.
Yeah.
That's right. All right. Um, According to the passage, the job of the student of literature is to one, discover ways to approach literature intellectually. Two, separate rational from irrational elements in literary works. Three, integrate experience of literature as art in analysis of literature as knowledge. So I think here, mm, I feel like this question is kind of like a structure question because it's kind of referring to the second paragraph, mostly, in my opinion. Right.
Okay.
So like in the second paragraph, we spoke about yeah, like the student has to it translates the whatever they're studying, and then it might be rational, but they have to make it rational when they actually translate into intellectual terms.
Okay.
Try my best not to look at the passage, even though if I was doing it myself, I probably would at this point. Um, so yeah,
Okay. So what do you feel like? What do you think about Roman numeral one?
Well, they said literature methods were intellectual, right?
So, like, sure, yeah.
Um, I would keep it. I'm not crazy about it, but like I think I would keep it.
So,
Um,
yeah, we're saying that literary study involves con converting or translating the experience of literature into intellectual terms, right?
mhm.
And then paragraph 3 says, how can we intellectually deal with art, right?
Mhm.
And then we have a couple of possible ways to do that.
Okay.
So, yep, okay.
To separate the rational from irrational elements in literary works. Um, so I mean, I don't really know. Like, I don't think. Um, I don't think they say that. Like, they're saying that to transfer the irrational into rational. Like, is that saying that they have to separate? Like, they just have to put in their own terms as rational.
Okay.
I mean, I guess like I don't know if they're specifically separating things, but like you know what I mean? Like I don't know when the AMC wants me to be like overthinking or when they want me to just like because the idea I get like you need but the author needs to write the rational things in its own words, even if the analysis, even if the actual thing itself is rational.
Well, so it's very nuanced in the language. Now, we said that in the passage, right? We said that the subject matter could be irrational, but the lit study of it must be rational, right?
Hmm.
So that would be like Superman flying is irrational, but if I wrote like a review of or an essay on Superman, the essay would have to be rational, right?
Hmm.
So, and that's different from separating the rational elements in the literary work from the irrational elements in the literary work. So it would be like, if I were to do that, I would be like, okay, in Superman, him flying is irrational. Um, but he's but like Lois Lane is drinking, like taking a picture, that's rational. That can happen. And is that the job of the student of literature to be like, in a literary work, this is a rational element in that literary work, and then this is an irrational element in that literary work,
Hmm.
right? So that's what two is saying. It's just saying to separate the rational that's in literary works from the irrational that's in literary works.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, yeah, what do you think about that choice?
It's not right.
Okay.
That's the original and like sense I had. And I mean, technically on the exam, like they don't have anything where it's like one and three, you know? So I would just pick one and move on. But integrate the experience of literature is, oh wait, yeah, I was about to say, Integrate the experience of literature as art and the analysis of literature as knowledge. Um, they didn't really mention that in this. They didn't mention art in, well, they mentioned the third paragraph, but like,
So whenever
um,
they didn't mention, be very careful about that. I would say to almost not even use it unless it's like really obviously out of scope. But
mhm,
it shouldn't be your something that you think of like right away because they did mention it in some type of way. I can show you after, or I can show you now. So we wrote that. So here we wrote translate the experience of literature into intellectual terms, which must be rational if it is to be knowledge, right?
mhm,
So it's almost exactly this, except for one word.
right.
Which word?
That like, um, integrate
Um, I mean that's kind of like translate.
analysis
So go with the next couple of words, the experience of literature,
into intellectual terms,
and then this says
art.
as art.
Oh, so into intellectual terms versus um as art.
You said art here in paragraph one, right? And
Right.
we use that to describe literature itself, right?
Okay.
So if you experience literature as art, it would be like the creative part, like either writing the literature, right? So that's the difference here, which means that so yeah, here it's the experience of literature as, I guess reading it and writing like an essay on it for it to be literary study, whereas this literature as art would be like writing the literature,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, if someone chose Roman numeral two, they would have just, the mix and match thing, like that's how you get these other answer choices. Like people would be like, okay, um, they're saying, where is it? Rational, irrational, unrational. So people would be like, okay, Roman numeral two. So because if you're like if one of the reasons that you have to eliminate something is that they didn't mention it in the passage, it can also work against you in that they could mention parts of something in a passage, but still be a wrong answer.
Okay.
Mhm.
Assuming that a scholar is planning an extensive study of the children's story Red Riding Hood, the author of the passage probably would say the most important task to be performed is
Okay.
A. Examining the social context in which the story was written. So the main idea, against we're separating scientific from intellectual methods. Um, and so I don't know if examining a social context would really does anything for the main idea. Um, I would keep it, I guess, compared to B and see which one I like more for now.
Okay.
Comparing the occurrence of words indicating various concepts, family relationships, food, emotional states, etc. Um, as for the most important task, to study. So we're saying literature study into is intellectual, translating to intellectual. Um, I just don't think social context has anything to do with anything like, at all. I'll remove A.
Okay.
D, tracing prior literature influences on the structure of the story and its influence on later works. Yeah, I'm pretty sure when I was doing this, like I remember them, at least something that I did probably was good was like remembering the origins thing and the causal thing. So, um, I I removed paragraph B because my thinking was like here the tracing parallel influences on the structure of origins influence is like it's connecting it to the like I think it was paragraph 4 or 5 that spoke about origins and things that like you're looking at causal relationships. Um and so and then D, isolating the story elements that explain its enduring popularity. I mean, I don't know if popularity is very like significant here. Like A and D were for me the ones that were out for sure. And B also kind of.
Okay. So, okay. You said something about, was it C or
C, yes. What do you mean?
oh, yeah, sorry. So did you say, what did you say about C?
It like connects to the causal and origins.
And what does that connect to?
Like the methods they spoke about, when they like overlapped literature and science.
So, so first of all, with A, so tell me, I know I asked this already, but tell me one more time why you eliminated A.
Um, I thought that it was out of scope.
Okay.
Like I didn't think social context was important here.
So did they mention this in the passage?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like if I see the passage now, like I could pinpoint it. It's economic, social, and political conditions.
Okay. So that is related to what?
Causality, scientific causality.
And that's related to?
Um, how we can use science to study literature.
All right. Now, what's the author's opinion on using science to study literature?
Well, it's kind of um it hasn't been fulfilled. Like we haven't like you can use it, but like it hasn't really been the used the way it's meant to be.
Well, uh, is it that it just hasn't worked, or is it that I mean, like even if it let's say it did work, I mean, the author does admit that there's overlap, but if you ask the author, hey, like, you know, let's use scientific methods to analyze Red Riding Hood, do you think he'll be like, yeah, let's do that? Or do you think he'll say something else?
Uh, I don't know. He'll say
Well, so
like literature methods.
yeah.
But the thing is, I don't understand. This passage is saying that literature and science are distinct.
So
Like
yeah.
literature can come back, it can be resuscitated or whatever. But science obscured literature. But he's just like saying that literature and science methods are separate. Like,
So there's basically what he's saying is, how do we study literature? Well, we can use methods from the sciences, but that doesn't really work. And we should acknowledge that the fact that literary study has its own methods that are valid, and we should use those methods, right?
yeah.
Because again, remember, this is not the author. This is not the author. This is the author. This is the author. This is the author. So paragraph 1 says there's no distinction. Paragraph 2 says there is. Paragraph 3 says we can use scientific methods. Paragraph 4 and 5 say, sure, there could be overlap, right? But we should use literary methods that are distinct from sciences.
Hmm.
So choice A, examining the social context, that is over here, which is scientific causality, which is using science methods to analyze literature. How does he feel about that?
Doesn't like it.
Good. So we can eliminate A for a much better reason, which is contradiction. So anytime you think out of scope or they didn't mention it, be very, very careful. Okay. All right. Now, what about B? So, huh?
I I don't know. I'm scared to say out of scope now, but I don't know.
so,
Yeah,
I'll just tell you right away that all of these choices are mentioned in the passage. They're not explicitly mentioned, but that's why it's important to be able to put things in your own words.
neutral facts.
Uh-huh.
Is that B?
Yep. And occurrence of words could be like what? Like, all right, there's 5 words that mean family relationships, 5 words that mean emotional states. That can also be a quantitative method, right?
Oh yeah.
It could be quantitative. It could also be what you said was uh oh,
Collecting neutral facts.
neutral facts. So these are all science methods, and the author doesn't like using the science methods, so B is out. Contradiction, right? So what you don't want to do is, all right, they never mentioned comparing the occurrences of words in the passage, so it's out of scope, and that's why B is wrong. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is, all right, comparing the occurrences of words is not explicitly stated, but it's neutral facts and it's quantitative, and that's a type of scientific method, and the author's against using that. What about C?
That's isn't that like causal?
Um, well, when we looked at it, causal seemed to be more along the lines of the economic, social, and political conditions.
Mm-hmm. So it's bad.
Oh, You said it's bad or it's that?
That like scientific causality
So
wasn't really working.
yeah, none of this stuff, science methods work. But remember, we have a bunch of science methods here. So
So
C,
then origins, right?
yeah, tracing prior literary influences, right? That's the biological concept of tracing the evolution in literature,
Oh, okay.
right?
I
So
thought it was whatever. Yeah, I
the
thought it was a study of causal antecedents and origins, like before scientific causality.
yep. So that's
That sentence.
yeah. So that is related to the economic, social, and political phenomena.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, what I want you to see is that A relates to the to that causality thing. B relates to, as you said, the neutral facts and the quantitative methods. C relates to or refers to biological concepts tracing the evolution of literature. And all of these are in that paragraph that lists the various scientific methods you could use to study literature, which the author's against. So A, B, and C are out because of contradiction, which is a much better reason for something being wrong than so-called out of scope, right? Or so-called wasn't mentioned in the passage. So you want to be very flexible with putting things, seeing how wording, you can change the wording of things, but still mean the same thing.
I have absolutely no idea what D where D said.
So, oh, where it says you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't, so two things. I mean, well, one is kind of like a cop out, but the answer a lot of times in cars is going to be the one that's least wrong rather than most right. But what we really want to ask is D something that is in paragraph three, aka is D something that is like a scientific method, right?
I don't know.
Uh-huh. So it's not any type of neutral fact. It's not any type of objectivity, right? It's not any type of causality. It's not any type of evolution of literature. It's not, quantitative. So it's not those scientific methods that the author's against, right? It's elements in the story that can explain why it's so popular, right? And that could be something that the author would be for because the author would be definitely against A, B, and C.
Hmm.
Okay.
How is popularity like I could say popularity is a neutral fact. I could say it's quantitative. Popularity. It's a percentage of popularity, like
Well, sure, but we're not choice D isn't saying how popular something is. It's saying what makes something popular. What in the story makes it popular. Whatever it is, it's not likely to be anything, scientific, right? It could be something like, you know, um, themes that people like, um, things that would be more so like humanities. So like maybe
hmm
cautionary tale for children to be careful with weird people who are like, hey, do you want candy? Could be a lot of things, but more so humanities related rather than science related. That's what we're looking for, right? It's like saying I like this movie because it has really good visual effects, could be kind of like a scientific thing. Whereas if you say I like this movie because of the story, that's not a scientific thing. That's more of a humanities thing, right?
Can you wait? Can you say that again?
Yeah. So like, let's say that I like,
Like a movie?
yeah. So let's say that a movie is really popular because it has really good special effects like CGI. That would be like a technological reason for, let's say, a movie, being popular or something like that, right? Technical reason, which is more along the lines of a scientific reason. But if a movie is popular because its story is really good, like the characters are written really well, that would fall under the academic discipline. I mean, it wouldn't fall under the academic discipline of sciences, it would fall under the academic discipline of the humanities. And
Hmm.
if we're so anything that we said in our main idea about lit study has its own valid methods, we can equate lit study to the humanities,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
Mhm.
How could the author best clarify the statement that literature is irrational or at least contains strongly unrational elements? I don't even know. I mean, this was a tough one. I like also had no idea, but A, by providing definitions of both rational and unrational. Um, I was like, I thought that could be a way, but like, I mean, like, even if you provide definitions,
Mhm.
you might not clarify it.
Yeah. So what any choices we can probably like eliminate?
What do you mean?
Oh, are there any choices we can eliminate, do you think? Or
We've only gone through A though. I mean,
oh yeah. Okay, so A may work, may not work. All right, what about B?
by provide giving an example of unrational element in a specific work of literature.
Mhm. What do you think about that?
Uh, sure.
All right, what about C?
Discussing rationality of the creative process. I mean, they don't really clarify which creative process, and also like that's kind of like the authors. It's like the authors like the person who actually made it. They're the ones that make the rational things. Like we're I don't know.
Well, so this is so okay, this quote is from paragraph 2, right? Where in
Hmm.
paragraph 2 it says that um it may be true that the subject matter is irrational or at least unrational, but the student of literature has to convert it into something that is rational, right?
Hmm.
So C says by discussing the irrationality of the creative process. C, what about C is not very good in terms of what we're looking for.
The student is not. That's what I was saying. The student, it's they're not like in the
Uh-huh.
position to
Go
discuss that.
So I think what you're getting at is the student is not creating things.
Hmm.
Student is studying. lit. So C would be wrong because of it mentions the creative process, which we said here is about literature, not about literary study, right?
Yeah.
All right, what about D?
By adding the explanation, human behavior is rational, therefore stories depicting the truth of human behavior are likely to seem unrealistic.
Okay, what do you think?
They said that like they said that human behavior um could be irrational.
Yeah. All right. So
But even then, like they're not this choice D is not really talking about unrational. Like,
good. So choice D isn't talk because it's like, okay, what do they mean by irrational or at least contain strongly unrational elements? D says human behavior is irrational, and then stories of that can seem unrealistic. So it's missing something about unrational, and it's adding something that we're not looking for, which is whether something is realistic or not.
mhm.
So that's out. And now A and B. A says if we can clarify it by providing definitions of both irrational and unrational. B says by giving an example of an unrational element in a specific work of literature. So both of these are really good choices. Which is better?
B,
Why?
because you're giving an actual example in literature. Like if I had two definitions of words,
Uh-huh.
I might not like I might still not fully like that doesn't correspond to literature, you know what I mean? Like B actually talks about literature.
Yeah, if the question was how to clarify the difference between irrational and unrational, A would work, right?
Yeah.
But they're asking how to clarify the statement that literature is irrational or unrational. And A lacks the word literature.
hmm
So it's B.
Yeah.
Okay.
Passage suggests that the author believes the study of literature to be important because it um so A shows that the scientific method can be applied to a wide variety of disciplines. B
Tell me,
helps student become more creative. A shows that the scientific method can be applied to a wide variety of disciplines. This is kind of a main idea question. So A goes against what the author said.
perfect. But it would make sense for people to choose it, right?
Yeah,
Especially,
of course.
yeah. Okay. What about B?
B helps students to become more creative. Um, can you block out the text?
Sure.
Um, helps student become more creative. I don't think that'll be the correct answer. But
What did the author say about like what creative meant?
yeah, that's the thing I don't remember.
Okay. Well, then what do you think it could mean to be creative?
Did he say in the first paragraph, creative and art?
Huh?
Creativity and art is literature.
Huh? So it could be someone who writes literature, right?
Hmm. It could be someone who writes literature.
Hmm. So like, yeah.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yep,
Someone who writes literature versus literature studies. What you're saying?
yep. So
Yeah.
so yeah, paragraph one said that literature is creative, literary study is, I think it was like knowledge, and
Hmm.
there were some people who said, in order to study literature, you have to write your own literature, but the author disagreed with that. So B shouldn't be right because the author doesn't care and doesn't think that being creative is, is important to the study of literature. All right.
C. Teaches the truth that can be discovered by non-scientific means. Um. Okay. This was mentioned in the very last paragraph.
Okay.
Something about truth.
Okay.
That's like the buzzword.
Okay.
So I would keep C.
All right.
D offers a type of knowledge unavailable from other disciplines. Um, hmm, could be extreme,
Okay.
but unavailable from other disciplines. I feel like it's extreme.
Okay. So both of them. So C says non-scientific means. D says unavailable from other disciplines. So that's kind of saying, that we're not using science at the very least, and that we could be using something unique to literature. So the second part, the second half of these two choices work. So let's look more closely at the first half,
Teaches that the truth can be discovered. Offer the type of knowledge.
which one is more vague?
Truth.
So
Or wait, knowledge, I would say. I mean, they're both kind of vague.
well, the truth is, the truth. Truth is what happens, a type of knowledge could be anything. It could be knowledge of,
The truth.
it could be knowledge of lies, right? It could be knowledge of truth, knowledge of lies, knowledge of what we don't know if it's true or not. Whereas truth is truth, right? So D would be the better option here. Truth is saying too much.
Do you think that, like,
Yeah.
you're saying the broader answer is better?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I guess I haven't told you this before, but basically, how would a politician speak? If a politician gives you like, if you ask the politician, okay, what do you think about this policy or whatever? They're not going to just be like, yeah, I'm for it or no, I'm against it. Because if they say that, like, and then they say something contradictory later on, people will be like, hey, you flip-flopped, you said this on this date and now you're saying this. That's why politicians speak like in vague terms, so you can't hold them accountable. And the vaguer you are, the harder it is to disprove compared to if you are highly specific, right? It's easier to disprove. Meaning, if C was the case, right? What if we're not looking for truth, right? What if we're looking for something else, right? Like what if you can discover lies, let's say it's like a lie detector test or something, I don't know. If you could discover lies, um, or if there's some truth that you can't discover, C is already refuted. Whereas D says a type of knowledge, right? That could be anything. It's hard to disprove D.
Mhm.
Like if I said, okay, I can guarantee that your car score is going to be a 130 compared to if I said I can guarantee that your car score will improve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope this type of passage like doesn't come up in my exam. This is insane.
Oh no. I think yeah, no, I think you have the right idea here. Um so yeah.
Assume that contemporary literary studies involve a systematic analysis of text, have yielded evidence of underlying attitudes that traditional literary criticism has not detected. How does this assumption relate to assertions made in the passage?
What is this question asking?
Modern literary studies found attitudes that old literary criticism, old like
Uh-huh.
types didn't detect.
Yeah. So suppose that we found stuff that traditional literary criticism wasn't able to detect. How can this affect, you know, the arguments in the passage? So Roman numeral one says it is consistent with the assertion that the transfer of methods of the natural sciences of to art has not fulfilled expectations. What do you think?
Uh, um, yeah, it's
Okay.
probably true.
Okay.
Evidence for assertion where that there's field in which methodology of science and literary study overlap. Um, I would say it doesn't really relate to this. Talking about literary studies.
Okay.
Inconsistent with the assertion of philosophy, history, theology worked out about methods can be applied to humanities. I'll choose a one and three.
Okay, so this is saying that systematic analysis of text found things that original lit study methods were not able to find,
Hmm.
right? So this is going kind of against the passage argument. Passage argument is lit studies has its own valid ways that are not scientific, but still legit. And this question stem is saying, hey, let's say that we did this systematic analysis of text and we found stuff that traditional lit study was not able to find.
Hmm.
So that would weaken the author's argument. So
Yeah.
Roman numeral one is the author's argument that it's not like it hasn't worked out transferring the methods of natural sciences to art, but it's kind of saying that this applied to literature study like actually worked,
Mhm.
found some stuff. So that would work. Roman numeral two is saying evidence for the assertion in which they overlap. Tell me about that.
I don't think like it doesn't. This is talking about literature,
Oh,
literary.
sorry. Roman numeral one would be out because Roman numeral one saying that the methods in the sciences did not work for that of literary study, and the question stems saying that this new thing works in a way that the regular literary study didn't work. So Roman numeral one should be out. Roman numeral two could work because this systematic analysis of text is different from the original lit study methods, and they're saying that it's working. So Roman numeral one should work, and three, inconsistent with the assertion that philosophy, history, theology have worked out valid methods of knowing that can be modified to apply to the humanities. Um, it wouldn't be inconsistent with that because this is kind of like an example of, these types of things, as well as like the science type of things. So, um, oh, this is saying inconsistent. So yeah, that should be out. So this is really just asking us that, or saying that we found out that this systematic analysis of text shows us things that the original methods of lit study were not able to detect.
What is this analysis of text? Is it scientific or
Yeah.
okay?
Mhm. Right. Literary study and science overlap, and these methods are common to all types of systematic knowledge.
Let me see what I put. Okay, yeah, I put C.
Yeah,
Completely opposite.
yeah. So you chose the choices that are closer to the main idea, which is the good part. But yeah, the question stem here just was kind of like the um